Well, the countdown is on for the start of the Olympic Games in Beijing. Just 8 more days to go. The opening ceremony is set for next Friday. We'll be carrying that live on CBC News Network. Some of our Canadian Olympians are arriving in Beijing today. CBC's Natasha Fata is on this story for us. So, Natasha, good morning. What happens now for our athletes?
Good morning, Hillary. So all of these athletes anxiously waiting to get to Beijing that have now arrived are greeted with a great deal of security once they get there. So there's a hived-off section of the Beijing airport, which is allocated specifically for Olympians who are arriving to the city. And so they get sectioned off. They immediately get COVID-19 tests. They are greeted, of course, as you can see, by those individuals in those white security suits that basically there's a protective gear so COVID isn't getting in and it's certainly not getting out. Then their luggage is swabbed to make sure that there's nothing on there that would cause concern. If they go through all that, then they're immediately put on buses that are escorted by Beijing police and then taken off to fenced off hotels. Now, you'll recall during the Tokyo Games last year, there was this idea of the athletes' bubble where they were sort of isolated from the general population. What Beijing has is much more strict. It's called a closed loop. So once you're in the closed loop, you're not getting out. And so this is to make sure that the general population is not intermingling with all the people who are coming in from overseas to participate in the Olympics. It also includes the 20,000 Chinese citizens who are volunteers and staff for the Olympics. They'll be part of the closed loop and they will not be interacting with the general public. Once you're inside, you have to get permission to leave the premises, to go outside into the general city. If you get permission, that's a pretty big long shot. And on a daily basis, PCR tests will be conducted by staff in the Olympic setting. So all of this, of course, is to make sure that COVID-19 does not become a super spreader at these Olympic Games.
There's still a lot of controversy surrounding these Olympic Games. So take us through some of that.
So COVID being the big one, should we be having games, especially in the light of Omicron? But even aside from that, Hillary, there are so many critics out there of these games that are saying that we shouldn't be sending our athletes and that country should be boycotting the games specifically because of Chinese policies. So there's the issue of a lack of civil liberties and the infringement on personal freedoms and free speech in China. Just last week, there was a mandate sent out by the federal government saying that there should be no criticism by the athletes of Chinese laws and policies, and that would be insulting to the Chinese government. So you can interpret that as you will, but there certainly will be monitoring for any sort of what they describe as bad behavior. We need only turn to the case of Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai, who said that a Chinese official had assaulted her. She, quote unquote, disappeared for several days and then subsequently retracted that message. Many athletes have said something is definitely not right there, and she's been silenced by the government. We've done our own reporting about reports of how certain words are going to be tracked on people's phones that could be deemed as being controversial or critical of the Chinese government. So several athletes are going to be using burner phones. There's the issue of genocide. Many people have described genocide taking place against the ethnic Uyghur Muslim community of China. And there's also the encroachment of the sovereignty of Taiwan and Hong Kong under the guise of Chinese national security. So wherever one falls on any of these political issues, the point is that as much as people want to celebrate and cheer on their athletes and talk about gold, silver, and bronze, the issue is that in the background, there's a whole lot of controversy around China and some of its policies domestically and internationally.
Okay, Natasha, thank you for this. CBC's Natasha Fata for us in Toronto.